Elden Ring is Fromsoftware's latest swamp exploring simulator and the biggest, most cinematic and most popular game they've ever released, garnering over 950,000 consecutive players at its peak. The game was not only praised by the very trustworthy game critics and IGN, but is also one of the AAA games with some of the best fan reception in recent memory. Although that doesn't really mean much with the hellhole that are most modern big production, the patch will make them playable video games. With such success and with Fromsoftware's uncompromising game design and high level of difficulty of their games, Elden Ring has also received quite a bit of criticism, some fair like the complaining about the early launch frame drops and other kind of idiotic. I, a veteran of Soulsborne games, having started Dark Souls 3 at only the age of 13 with 4 playthroughs of that game, 3 of Sekiro, 1 of Dark Souls 1 and 1 yet to be started of Dark Souls 2, cause fuck that shit, under my belt, am going to be giving my thoughts on Elden Ring and everything it has to offer after having played the game for slightly more than 90 hours. Is it really that good? What makes you maidenless? And is it deserving of the criticism it receives from some people, or do those people just need to get good and turn on their brains? Watch and find out. Getting it straight out of the way, Elden Ring's open world structure and the magic of its first playthrough world exploration are some of the best I've ever seen. The world is not only as big as Morbius's insane gains at the box office, but also manages to be as dense and rich as George R. R. Martin's pornographic food descriptions. There is always something exciting to find right around the corner, and while playing the game I constantly thought, I'll explore just this one more thing and I'm done for the day, just to play the game for another 2 hours. And if an open world game can get someone so immersed, it surely does a ton right. Be it traversing through the legacy dungeons, the underground world, the villages or the enemy camps, there is this constant feeling of wonder and of exploring a massive world that is full of detail and mystery and that just keeps expanding. It also helps that From's games have some of, if not the best visual design and art direction in the medium. For me, the best example of how much there is to find in Elden Ring has to be Altus Plateau. The area has strange villages full of dancing residents of the Balkans, large enemy camps, war-torn fields, obviously a swamp with a fortress in it this time around, a spooky forest full of mist, mountaintops that just keep rising, the fucking capital, and Mordor to the side. Yes, the memes about this game's size are hardly an exaggeration. The legacy dungeons are also some of the best they've ever done, complex areas full of different ways in which you can progress through them, optional paths, secret paths, and a variety of fun, challenging enemies. My personal favorites would have to be Stormvale Castle, Leyndell the capital city, and Krambarnvala. In any case, exploring through the lands between is truly an euphoric experience, especially on your first playthrough. I'll elaborate on that more later. Elden Ring also feels so good to play because of how refined the movement and combat is. This is easily the best Dark Souls style gameplay has ever been. Rolling and hitting enemies feels smoother than ever, with stuff like guard counters, stakes of Marika and a jumping button all being welcome quality of life additions. Platforming in this game also doesn't make me feel like jumping on the trampoline like belly of your mom to get ricocheted into the burning sun. I also love Torrent, he makes traveling this game 10 times more enjoyable, although he gets killed too fast by random enemies to be viable in combat, which is a little unfortunate. Another thing I really appreciate in this game, and I mean really appreciate, is that there is no bullshit mechanic like Curse in Dark Souls 1, which made you farm for half a fucking hour for a stupid pendant just to get your full health back, nor are there any tedious gimmick or large movement restricting areas, the likes of Crystal Cave or Farron Keep from previous games. The combat is all capped off by the huge build and weapon variety, which makes each new character you create be a fresh experience. I truly believe that there is a little something for everybody in this game. You can use the Iron Throne or the Dragon Slayer if you're a Chad, a Spear if you have zero confidence in yourself, or the Moonveil Katana if you're an incel weeaboo who only speaks in terms like peak, mid, and clears. Though there is something that gets a little bit on my nerves, and that is how some weapons and playstyles are clearly superior to others, especially the overpowered magic. I personally, which may come as a surprise to some people, actually prefer to experience and master a boss's moveset instead of standing in the back spamming spells and thinking this game is so exciting. That is why I opt to only use the heaviest and slowest weapons, while full-heartedly knowing they put me at a disadvantage in many situations. Still, now it's my time to sound like a cuck, because I have a confession to make. I actually really love the Ash summons. There is a great variety of them and using them is super fun, although I opted not to use them for any major bosses except Melania for obvious reasons, because I still want to keep my integrity and not be labeled as a mimic tier exploiter. Speaking of said bosses, hot take or maybe not, but they're some of the best in the series. While more cinematic and combo heavy than ever, they still remain fair, and claiming that you get no opportunities to land hits in on most of the endgame fights is a lie. While I'll elaborate on that shit show of a discussion later, I right now have to admit that I did not particularly enjoy the weird side effects of some of the bosses later on. While Malekith's lifesteal and Mohg's blood loss effects, let's just say, were acceptable, I found Melania's ability to regain health with each successful hit to be more frustrating than a fun challenge, just like trying to have someone admit that they're wrong on the internet. Now, with what I think stands out as particularly great in Elden Ring, let's finally get to what isn't so good about this game of the year. Elden Ring's biggest problem is by far repetition. Almost all dungeons are repetitive and quite boring experiences. They're fine for a first playthrough, quite exciting really, but I highly doubted that on repeat runs of the game I'll bother to do more than 5, maybe even none at all. While they don't drag the quality of the game down, since there is nothing particularly bad about them, they do feel like a wasted opportunity. Another thing I really dislike would be the repetition of enemies and especially of the open world bosses. This makes your first encounters with the dragons of this game feel a lot less special, since you get to fight all of their shiny variants over the course of it. That, get this, have one or, if you're lucky, 2 new attacks to them. How unbelievably exciting. While the game's length does wonders for your first playthrough of it, on repeat ones I highly doubted that I'll bother with exploring every ruin with a chest or copy-pasted graveyard. Instead, I'll just speedrun to the best parts, the legacy dungeons and the bosses. While it deeply saddens my cold heart that a lot of the open world doesn't really remain exciting in any way on subsequent runs of the game, with how much does remain intriguing, it isn't a big issue. Now, before getting to the conclusion of the video, I wanna quickly address some complaints people have that I either respectfully disagree with or just find really funny. The review part of the video is basically over here, so if you just want to skip to the conclusion, you can use the timestamps in the comment section or in the description of the video. But if you still want to stick with me, then let's get to part 3. Apparently a lot of gamers lost their shit over the damage scaling in this game. They say it's bullshit, they say that bosses deal too much damage. Well, I do agree that the game kind of forces you to level up vigor a lot if you wanna have any chance against the later encounters. I have never truly been one-shot because I explored the world pretty thoroughly, which is the point of an open world game. And I'm not even the completionist kind, nor do I care much when I lose my runes unless I have the equivalent of more than 2 levels on me. I, personally, find it idiotic to struggle against a boss again and again when you're clearly underleveled instead of going out to explore the world around you. It's not the developer's obligation to show you what to do and when so that you don't smash your head against a brick wall again and again until you refund the game and post an angry rant tweet. It's your responsibility. Still, the criticism that I disagree with the most has to be the one that Elden Ring bosses are way too spammy, have way too many AoEs and give you too few opportunities to attack. I do kind of agree with it when it comes to Malenia, cause her water dance attack is so complicated to dodge it's not even funny, and when it comes to the Elden Beast, cause that boss can become an almost greater waiting game than the one A Song of Ice and Fire fans have been playing for almost 11 years. Although those bosses are exceptions and still have a lot of things you can appreciate about them. Now let's look at how many other endgame bosses have combos that are more than 5 hits in a row and also unpunishable with a heavy weapon build, shall we? Bill Weasley's longest combo is of 7 attacks, although all of them outside of the last two, which are heavier swipes, come in fast succession and the combo is punishable. The only unpunishable attack is the Lightning Bolt Slam, as every other attack or set of attacks gives you plenty of time to hit the boss afterwards, with the overhead slow swipe, the Elden Ring logo triple slam and the grab giving you plenty of time afterwards to hit the boss up to 3 times. Radagon can start teleporting away from you after finishing his attacks in his second phase, but with how fast paced the fight is and with how aggressive the boss is, it doesn't really break the flow of the combat that much. Also, it does help that Radagon's posture is easily breakable if you play the fight well. Also, remember that I'm using a weapon as slow as my upload schedule. Anyways, James Corden's attack, where he recites what he learned in Latin in 6th grade to drain your health for his own gain, is a once per fight ability and you can negate the damage you receive if you use the Purifying Crystal tier, which is fair. To make a fight against an endgame secret boss easier, you'll need further exploration of the game. His longest possible combo is when he jumps in the air, throws blood towards you, lands doing a large swipe, and then does the 3 swipe combo. Still, even that is punishable like all of his other really well telegraphed attacks. His only unpunishable attack is the one where he summons blood from above, but that is a perfect healing opportunity, so I really don't mind it. Malikath is very aggressive and gives you little opportunity to hit him, but he makes up for it by having very low health and you being able to attack him more than once when getting under him while he does his large, well-telegraphed swipes. Dragonlord Placidus X does make you run around probably more than any other boss in the series, but he makes up for it because when you do get close to the dragon, you can comfortably hit him up to 5 times, even more if you're lucky. The boss does have a lot of health, but again, all of his attacks are slow and very well telegraphed, so the boss is more of an endurance test than a fast-paced and mechanically tight battle. Godfrey's second phase is used quite often as an example of grab and AoE spam in this game. While I do think that the boss is a bit too aggressive and has a bit too many types of hugs of love for my liking, he makes up for it again by having not a lot of health. Godfrey is also, from what I know, the only fight that has more than 2 grabs unless you count Radagon and Elden Beast together, which kind of makes him a really unique fight in the grand scheme of things. I also don't see the complaining about the amount of AoEs in Elden Ring as reasonable, as most AoEs are dodgeable, just attacks that require a more precise dodge timing, and the others that do make you run away from them are usually perfect healing opportunities. Another complaint I've heard quite often is the one about bosses randomly adding an attack or two at the end of their combos. This usually does depend on your distance from said bosses and on phase changes, but I can definitely see how it could get very annoying at some points. Still, the most punishable attacks of each boss don't have these weird variations to them which are, at the end of the day, memorizable. It just requires a bit more patience. Unfortunately, this is the argument that I'm the least sure about, so if you do have examples of bosses AI just breaking and becoming unfair, please list them off in the comments. Finally done. Still, why did you add this entire section about endgame boss quality, you ask? Well, because I've seen this game's bosses get a ton of shit lately and am also yet to see a proper defense for them with fully illustrated arguments. So I decided to do just that, because I think that this game's bosses are very well crafted, albeit very different from what we're used to. You can, personally, not enjoy them and find them annoying to fight, but please don't call them garbage or objectively bad when there is so much to appreciate about them, be it mechanically or visually. Overall, Elden Ring is one of the most consistently enjoyable and well-made games I've had the pleasure of experiencing. The best parts made me feel like reading Vagabond for the first time again, and the weaker moments are not bad enough to worsen my experience in any significant way. It is an impressive achievement and the culmination of everything Fromsoftware has learned over the years. Whether you agree with me or not, just remember, leaving an angry comment would only prove Vare right. You would indeed be maidenless.